Hi everyone, I'm back with Jack Posobiec. How are you today, Jack?
Cari, how is it going? It has been so long since we've had a chance to catch up. Great to be back. I love talking to you as always.
Well, I'm enjoying this little thing that you have.
What do you got there?
It's called Citizens for Trump. It's a book by Jack Posobiec.
Citizens for Trump by Jack Posobiec. What is that? Was that some kind of fake book or something? Fake news. That's probably fake news, right?
It's not fake news. Let me tell you what. This was a great read, and I'll tell you why. Not just because I know you, but because it jogged my own memory of the most incredible time of history, at least politically, that I've ever lived through, that any of us have ever lived through. It's like Jack Posobiec's personal time capsule of election 2016, Donald J. Trump. So, Jack, how did you come about first of all, wanting to write a book? That's a big deal. Can you hear me? All of a sudden, I think your sound... Whoa, sound. Down.
Hey,
there we
better?
go. That's
weird.
Okay, so how did you come about wanting to write a book?
I've always wanted to write a book. I mean, since I was like a little kid, I've always wanted to write, my own book. The funny thing is, I never thought my first big book would be, nonfiction. I always thought I'd have some kind of, like I'm a big sci-fi fan, as I think people know. And don't worry, those books are in the works as well. However, I've always wanted to write something long form like this. And it's great because, lately, I'd say people know me more from Twitter. And in Twitter, you have to be very, very, very brief, 140 characters. Mm-hmm. But with the book, you're honestly, you don't have a limit. You write as much as you want. And so it's like, oh, how much do I want to go? So the funny thing is, I started out, and I thought like maybe 30,000 words or so would be fine. And so I hit that number, and then I was going through and editing, and I said, oh, wait, I need to include a chapter on this, and I certainly have to include a chapter on radical Islamic terrorism. And I totally forgot, I could add a whole another section in the MAGA 3X chapter here, and then it just kept getting going and further. Yeah. And then, originally, believe it or not, so a lot of this book, Citizens for Trump, the inside story of the people's movement to take back America, a lot of it was just my notes from running around all over the country during the election cycle.
What happened to your picture?
I'm trying to... I don't know. You got my audio, but not my picture?
Oh, there you are.
Is that back now?
You're back.
Weird. I'm jumping around. Deep state working overtime. Deep state working overtime. Come after Cari and Jack. But no, like I said, a lot of it was just taken from my notes on the campaign trail from working with working with the organization Citizens for Trump, going to different events, working in the primary, working at the convention, running the America First rally with Citizens for Trump and all of the amazing speakers, talking about what's it like to work with Alex Jones, what's it like to work with Milo and Roger Stone and Diamond and Silk and just everybody that we had out there. Yeah. What's it like to be faced with Antifa? How do you run security at a public event like that? I get into that.
Yeah.
Well, the way
the book was kind of laid out to me is that it's a trip through 2016, but it's also, there's times where you're water skiing and you're kind of skimming and you're given kind of the context, the lay of the land. But then there are times when you kind of snorkel and scuba dive a little deeper into some issues, and you give
I like the way you put that, especially as a Navy guy. I can appreciate
give the water analogy. So yeah, you kind of go a little deeper on some of these chapters where you really had some firsthand personal experience. And some of those chapters included the RNC convention and what it was like to be there and to run that event. And like you said, security for all those people coming up and speaking at a podium. I mean, the absolute chaos that was outside at this outside rally in front of that river in Cleveland. So there's some personal experience in here that I absolutely loved, and we'll get to some of those parts. But first of all, the one that stood out to me the most, I think, had to be the GOP coup.
And why did that one stand out to you, Cari Kelemen?
I think when I got to that part in the chapter, I went, there's a name I recognize. It was my own name. So
exactly,
we got to give the people who've read the book a little background on this chapter in the book.
So this chapter, it's what people don't realize, that when all this was going down, now this is all, and obviously, get the book, you can get all the details there. It's up on Amazon, it's on my Twitter, Just type in Citizens for Trump, you'll find it. But what happened was they were trying to get Trump to drop out of the race after the Access Hollywood tapes came out. And I was able, through just talking to people, being in New York at Trump Tower, running around all over the place, figuring out what was going on, was able to piece together what essentially their plot was, all the misinformation. I was able to get it out to Trump. I was able to get it out to Governor Pence at the time. And then I think like the next day, I went and broke the story in an interview with you that we put out, and that just went viral.
Well, the way that happened was I was doing some show prep for another podcast show, and I'm looking at your Twitter timeline, and there's a tweet that caught my eye. I have not gone back to look exactly which one it was, but I went, holy cow, there's a story there. I got to call Jack. So I called you up, and I said, Jack, tell me about this. What in the heck? And it must have had the word coup in it, or the GOP and all this. And we have to remember, too, that we were thinking at this point in time that after the RNC convention, when they tried that last little, we're going to try to get Trump off the ticket.
Trump. Remember Dump Trump?
Yeah, all of that, vote your conscience,
all
that. We finally figured after that convention, okay, everybody's on the same page. We're going to try to get this guy over the finish line. All the little, side groups trying to sabotage the Trump ticket, they're all been quieted down, and we're all on the same page. We're all going to take this Trump train across the finish line to defeat Hillary Clinton. And dadgummit, I see this tweet of yours, and you're like, it's not dead. They're still trying. And I'm like,
no, now, and it's so prescient, the fact that you and I were able to break that story, because now we're seeing, as we move into the first 6 months of the Trump administration, that, it's funny that it almost seems like the bigger problem that the president has with getting his agenda through is not necessarily the left and the Democrat Party, but in many instances, it's actually the right. Leaks, problems with legislation, problems with things not being able to get upright, problems with this vote and that vote. And it's crazy to think that with both houses of Congress under the control of the Republican Party, that we're not able to get the big bills through that the president has been trying all this time.
It's true. Okay, so this tweet, I'm looking at your timeline, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're still trying. I got to talk to Jack. I call you on your phone, and you're like, I'm like, can you talk to me about this? And you're like, I'm headed to a dinner. And I'm like, Scott me from your phone. And so the actual interview happened in your car on your way to another event. So
yeah, I was running out to, I don't even remember which dinner. I couldn't even tell you. I think it was some donor dinner or something like that. And it was just amazing because, things were moving second to second. It felt like that weekend, and there was so much going on. This was, of course, the same weekend as the second debate. And a lot of people don't remember that, there was a moment where the mainstream media, all of these Republicans as well started coming out against Trump and rescinding their endorsements. And believe me, I have a very, very vivid list of every single one who rescinded their endorsements, and they will not be forgotten. And people really started saying the media was pushing the narrative that Trump was going to drop out. Actually, as a complete aside to all of that, one of the congressmen, one of the very big congressmen that actually came out publicly and said he would continue to support Trump was Steve Scalise.
Yes.
At that time, he came out very specifically and said, look, the guy made some comments. We all make mistakes. He's still the best candidate, period.
Well, at the time, in October, he was the only candidate other than Hillary Clinton. So to me, this was absolutely intolerable that they were still trying to sabotage our ticket. So you were on your way to an event, and we did this quickly over a Skype. Oop, your picture's gone again. There you are.
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back. And there was, so it was just a quick interview over Skype. It was just you're telling the story. There was a story at the end, though, of this interview that we had, and it was a view at Trump Tower on the Saturday after the tapes dropped. You were in New York City. You were at Trump Tower. You were having a taco salad and this kind of thing. and the narrative, the thing they were trying to say all day long on Saturday was that Trump was getting disinvited, that he was getting unendorsed by all the GOP, and this is just falling apart, kind of thing. And you had firsthand in New York City, you had a different take. What was that like?
Yeah, so being up there, we actually organized, or I should say somebody organized, I don't know who would do such a thing, organized a flash mob right outside of Trump Tower right there in Manhattan to tell all the people, give me 1 second, I'll get my picture back, to tell all the people there, mm-hmm. and let the world see through the power of social media that Trump supporters were still there. Mm. And so they staged this flash mob, and they were out there for several hours cheering and screaming for the president. And then
candidate at the time.
Candidate himself came out and stood with the people, raised his fist, said, "I'm not going anywhere." And I remember sitting up there, and me just sitting back in the Trump lounge, at the Trump Grill, and having the thing, and everybody runs outside, and I asked the waiter, I said, "What's going on?" And it said, "It's Trump. He's outside. He's here, and everyone's going to go see him." And I just said, "Excellent." I just kept eating my taco salad.
Okay, so did he actually go outside to the street, or did he just come down into the lobby?
Oh no, he went to the street. He was out there.
Oh my gosh! And so, how many people do you think were?
They had probably about 100 people, and which is amazing when you consider Manhattan, where I'm pretty sure the only votes that he got out of Manhattan were, everyone had Trump as their last name.
Yeah, yeah. So a flash mob, and you said that they stayed out there till after it got dark, that they were lighting candles, they were singing "God Bless America." I mean, all kinds of stuff. What do you think this did for Donald Trump at that point in time?
I think it showed him that his support was much deeper than anybody realized. Mm-hmm. So people can talk about, in politics, they talk about having a broad base of support, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people have, but a lot of people, when it comes to politicians, their support, they say it's a mile wide and an inch deep, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I support that candidate's policies, or oh, I support that candidate's, because I like I like them on this particular issue. If it's like a single issue candidate, that sort of thing. Illegal immigration, for example, was like that for many, many candidates for years. But with Donald Trump, there's no one single issue that people really look to him for. It was, you bought into the man. Yeah. You bought into Donald Trump. You bought into his ideas, his brand of politics, his attitude, his personality, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that is what people wanted. That's what brought people back. That's what brought people out at the polls on Election Day in November, because they wanted someone like Donald Trump, because they knew he was like them.
Yeah.
And that's what engendered that deep level of support to say, look, you're a human. You make mistakes. Yeah. We all do. It happens. Yeah. But the fact that you're willing to own up to it, to apologize, and to go out there and put on your best foot. If that had been Hillary Clinton, I'm sure there would have been some kind of, oh, well, that was taken out of context, and I really didn't do anything wrong, and we tried to explain it away. And we're seeing the same thing with CNN just today. Yeah. After this damning tape comes out from Project Veritas, the guy saying, oh yeah, the Russia thing's a bunch of BS and it's all for ratings. And he said, well, that's his personal opinion. That's not our opinion. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. No. He stated this as a categorical fact. That wasn't an opinion. He said it was the policy of your news director, your CEO, Jeff Zucker, to do this. And they're saying, oh, it's just so, people are sick of the fakeness. People are sick of the corporate, polish on these candidates and these companies. Yep. They wanted somebody real. They wanted somebody genuine. And they were willing to say, you know what? Yeah, we know Donald Trump's a little rough around the edges. He's Donald Trump, right? Yeah. It's kind of comes with the territory. But but what people didn't realize with that, and to be honest, I mean, you could even say this in kind of to put it in a political context, on the Democrat side, for everything we have to say about Bill Clinton, and I'm just talking about Bill Clinton in a political sense here, Democrats generally forgave him for what he did.
Oh yeah.
You really don't largely hear Democrats and people in middle America being upset at Bill Clinton over Monica Lewinsky, because it took him kicking and screaming and a whole dress to do it, but he apologized, right? And that showed that the American people and the American electorate have a large capacity for forgiveness. We are a Christian nation. Yeah. That's built into it. Now, while I'm on the topic, still have to say Bill Clinton, still a rapist.
Still he is.
Yeah. So
but this also
I'm not
brings
talking about
me
him
to
personally. I'm simply talking about the electoral politics in general.
Yeah, well, this brings me to another point, a great point you made in your book about kind of almost a literary device that you brought to Trump. Get it going. You ready?
It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
All right, so the literary point where you talk about Trump as an anti-hero. Explain what that means.
I did. So, to me, the anti-hero is somebody like Batman. It's somebody like, to a greater extent, people could say like Tony Soprano or Walter White. But I like the character of Batman better because it's this idea that's come up in media so often, where the main character is someone who, they're not a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
They're not Superman. They're not this like, Kansas boy coming out to save the day and everything. They're rough. They're gritty.
Mm-hmm.
They use questionable tactics. They use questionable methods. But we've seen so much in American culture and in American and Western in general, in movies and TV shows and books, that those type of characters are the ones that are champions lately, that have been championed over the last 10 years. And that's the type of character that people that show. What was that show? I don't think I mentioned this one in the book, but there was a show on Showtime called Dexter, right?
Uh-huh.
And the main character was a serial killer. And it was like, and they said, well, no, it's okay because he only kills other murderers.
Mm-hmm.
So and they try to weave this little like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, there's this sort of interesting, hey, it's not so bad, this like justification of it. Okay, and I'm not comparing Donald Trump to a serial killer, but I am saying that there's been this sort of trend of having leaders, or heroes, I should say in this case, heroes that aren't 100% perfect and that are willing to do what it takes to get the job done.
Well, I did love that because you made a comparison between Batman and Superman. Superman, who was kind of always perfect, and Batman, who was definitely flawed, but had good intentions and a good heart. In 2012, we ran about the squeaky cleanest candidate we could possibly find in Mitt Romney, and he still got destroyed.
Yeah, nobody bought it because he was sitting there like, I've never done anything wrong in my life, and I've never done this. I had lunch with Mitt Romney in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
Like very small lunch, maybe about 20 people, and I said to him, I said, look, I said, you got to do two things. Number one, choose a vice presidential candidate from one of the swing states so you can win there, Ohio, Virginia, or Florida. Obviously, he didn't. Chose Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
And then I said, and you have to hit Obama on Obamacare. And he said he didn't want to. And I said, why don't you want to? And he said, because I have Romney Care, and it's too similar, and they're just going to say that you got Obamacare from Romney Care. And I said, well, that's easy. All you have to do is say, we tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So then you can say, as a pragmatic thing, that we tried it and it didn't work. But he refused to say that because it had his name on it. He refused to admit that anything with his name on it wasn't, perfect and great and golden and amazing. Right? I was saying, like, dude, you can brush it off and actually use it as a more powerful attack on Obama,
Mm-hmm.
because that way it'll be much more persuasive to say, guess what? We tried.
Yeah.
We tried single payer. We tried government health care, and it didn't work.
That would have been
me,
perfect.
That's much more. Yeah.
That would have been perfect. But you understand why candidates on our side were hesitant to admit they had done anything wrong or failed in any way, because they got excoriated for the tiniest little thing. Absolutely. After 2012, after we lost that election, I'm like, okay, Jesus Christ would not make it through the GOP primary process, nor would he make it through a general election. There's absolutely no way. We are held to an impossible standard. And along comes Donald Trump. And in September of 2015, he says, I'm no angel, but I'm going to do right by the American people. And I thought, he's admitting he's not perfect. Right there, he's admitting he's not perfect. This might work. This approach might work, where you just say off the bat, I'm not perfect. And you're just honest and authentic about it, and Americans ate it up. Absolutely loved it.
I think there were also a lot of people who said, that when President Trump or candidate Trump, I keep wanting to say that.
Okay.
It is the title now, and I've actually been saying President Trump for long before he was elected. Meme it into existence. You've got to meme it into existence. I explain a lot of this in the book. Psychological operations, how this stuff works against us, how this stuff can be used for us. And people are like, Jack, what do you know about this? I wrote a book about it, right? Now I get to say that. How cool is that?
Read my book.
I wrote Citizens for Trump. I literally wrote a book about this. And then there's a whole section on like grassroots campaigns as well. So it's the influence campaign and the grassroots level combined is how you get the actual societal shift. But no, you know, talking about this and putting it out there, it's like people don't realize the fact that once you set the branding, once you decide the standard that you're going to set yourself with, it doesn't matter what they say because you've already framed the entire situation that way. Oh,
yes. In fact, I understand from experts that branding is simply the expectation of an experience. And so with Trump, he was unpredictable. That was part of his brand, being unpredictable. Yes. So when he did something unpredictable, people just went, that's Trump being Trump.
Yeah, exactly. It's setting up this so if you set an expectation to be perfect and that you're gonna be this perfect person, nobody's gonna follow up to it.
Well,
the other thing is nobody relates to it.
Right. No one.
There's no emotional connection there between that person and the candidate because it's like you're a TV character reading off of a script.
Yeah.
But when Donald Trump gets up in front of a stage of thousands of people and he says, and he's talking from the heart and he's connecting with people in the audience, he brings little kids up on stage with him. Yeah, you can say it's hokey and you can say it's silly, but I don't think there's anybody who's looking at that and say, oh, this guy doesn't believe what he's saying.
Yeah.
Right. That this comes from the heart with this guy who had everything you could want in the world and then gave it all up to take on this, this insanity because he loved his country and because he wanted to leave a better world for his children.
Yeah, and you just hit on one of the most important things that when I was talking to people about why are you supporting Trump, one of the most important things that came up over and over again was his inability to be bought, that he was already a billionaire, that he didn't need any more money, he didn't need any more fame, and this truly was a sacrifice on his part to run for president. This was not to gain anything. He was sacrificing to do it. And that was huge.
That's what tied him back into the populist movement. And one of the chapters in Citizens for Trump that I like so much is that I go back and I explain to people that this strain of populism isn't new to the United States, right? This goes back to the Tea Party, but that's only in, it's sort of like 2009 through 2011. But that wasn't even the original start of it. That even goes back further. If you want to take it, I talk about Ross Perot, Pat Buchanan. I go back to, the Whiskey Rebellion, the populist movement, the Bull Moose Party, and even the American Revolution itself was in essence a farmers' revolt, against the crown far away. Very much a populist revolt. So I think that this is something that's always been endemic to American politics, always been endemic to the American identity, and for generations upon generations of American kids growing up reading about the revolution, reading about stuff like that. You're already primed. You already are ready for something like that. And I always go back and read not the Constitution, the Declaration. I was just out in Monticello with the lovely Tanya Tay, and and she's doing her homework right now. But we were reading the Declaration, and I said, this just could be written today. It says, when in the stream of events that the bonds that tie a government to the people together. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands, right? And then it talks about why is that, and what are the purposes, and it's like, wow, you could just. And then there's like the establishment of facts, and people always, and I totally get off on a tangent here, but people always forget about. People always remember like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? They remember that from the Declaration. Nobody forgets the entire second half where he goes through the list of all of the things that the King of England had done to the colonies, and you read it, and it's like taxes, regulations, government officials dictating everything,
government officials not being under the laws in which they were writing.
Immigration.
Yeah,
it mentions immigration. Like, I'm like, these people don't know their history. Like, guys, Americans, we've we don't know our history because it wasn't taught to us. We have to relearn our history. Mm-hmm. The Declaration of Independence has an immigration policy in it.
Yeah.
Did you guys even, like, who knows, who even talks about that anymore? Yeah. But so realizing that, and there's some people, and we've got to mention, I'm sure that, some people, so I went to see a play not too long ago. I think people heard about it. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I got up, and it was the Trump assassination play, for anyone who doesn't know who's listening. And, my friend Laura Loomer actually rushed the stage and said, "You're normalizing political violence." I jumped up in the stands and I said, Goebbels would be proud, mm-hmm. and the blood of Steve Scalise is on your hands for that propaganda, that level of propaganda. Yeah. And of course, the left lost their minds. But then so many people on the right started wringing their hands as well and saying, "Well, Jack, what about the First Amendment? Don't they have a right to assassinate the president on stage if they want to?" And I kind of turned around and I said, and they're like, "What would the founding fathers say?" And I'm like, the founding fathers declared war on the king. So I'm pretty sure what I did was a little bit less extreme than that. Show me in the Constitution where they won the war against Great Britain to win America's independence. Yeah. It's like, no. You win the battle, and then you can talk about, philosophy and scholarship mm-hmm. Afterwards. Mm-hmm. Because if you think that we're in the scholarly debate part of this, you're not paying attention to reality. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. But you do bring up a good point about revolution. And that's how you closed out your book. I don't want to close out the interview just yet. I got lots to talk to you about. But where you said revolution happens before any action's taken, it's in the hearts and minds of the people. It's already. It's true, and
that's a line from a letter that John Adams wrote later in his life. Mm-hmm. He said people always confuse the war with the revolution. He said, no, the war was a symptom of the revolution. The revolution happened. Hearts and minds of men and women, because the revolutionary idea in their case was, remember, they were all British citizens. The revolutionary idea was that they could be something different. Yeah. They could be American citizens of an American country. Right. And that's that. I mean, what do you mean? What's that? That doesn't exist. What is it? What is America? What does that mean?
Yeah. That's so fascinating. I understand. I don't know if this can be proven or not, but I understand that at the time of the American Revolution, about a third of the people wanted to stay loyal to the king. About a third of the people were.
Yeah, we call that Canada.
Yeah, exactly. About a third of the people wanted the American Revolution, and about a third of the people were indifferent. They were ambivalent about it. And so the entire American Revolution was fought and won with only about 33%, 35% of the people. So when you think, we're never going to gain a majority, we're never going to make change happen, you don't have to have a majority to make big changes happen. You just need to have a very passionate third.
No, you're absolutely right.
We've got more than that now.
Even in that third, you're going to have different levels of people who are, more extreme, less extreme, more out there. I mean, I'm out there every day, but there's some people that are like, come out on the elections, or some people that get more involved with this rally or that rally. Mm-hmm. And that's great. So you've got sort of like different thought leaders, influencers. You've got people that are willing to show up with, with an American flag, people willing to make signs, people willing to do more. Mm-hmm. But now with sort of the info war that's being fought right now, and the fact that we can actually fight back with social media by building our own platforms, by having shows like the Cari Kelemen Power Hour here, that we don't need their platforms anymore. Yeah. And there's something I wish this was my line, but I have to steal it from Mike Cernovich, because he said it at our rally at the White House 2 days ago. He held up his iPhone and he said, in the 1700s, 1775, it was the pamphlets, right? Yes. Well, this iPhone, this is your pamphlet now.
That's cool.
This is your printing press, right?
Yeah.
This is how you share the ideas out immediately.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, that's what they needed back then. It was and there's actually studies that show this, that it was the printing press, that common sense, right? Thomas Paine, he wrote it. Heck, he wrote many more, but that was the one that everybody knows. And the fact that, he was able to spread that so quickly to all 13 colonies that suddenly
Yeah.
There was this big movement, and so that's kind of what like social media is doing now today.
Oh,
is to say that like that we don't need all of their siloed controlled platforms anymore, that we can just connect.
Yeah. And
it's fantastic. I mean, look, like you and me, like you and I have talked so many times throughout the campaign. I think we've only met maybe a handful of times, right? But we've connected because we share this belief in our country.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Social media is unbelievable. I had the privilege of hearing Andrew Breitbart live at a speech he made in Dallas in 2010, and
wow.
He said he was his house was on the edge of a national cemetery. So he says, I don't get to forget what freedom costs. I see it out my back door every day. But he said one night he was on his back porch and he had his laptop in his lap and his phone in his hand, and he said, hey, thanks Steve Jobs for the weapons. Everybody that has one of these is a journalist. This makes you a journalist. And you pointed out that there was one of the most important acts of journalism during the campaign. What was that?
I've gone a step further. It was the most important act of journalism. It had to do with I always screw up the guy's name, Zdeněk Garza, the Czech volunteer firefighter from New Jersey, who just happened to be visiting the 9/11 memorial on 9/11 2016, and got that video of Hillary Clinton passing out on her way to the van and having to be carried there by her staff and Secret Service. The entire it's mind-blowing to think that
it changed
the entire mainstream media was there, and not a single one of them could turn the camera to show that. It was a guy on the side of the road with a Twitter account that had like a couple hundred followers, like friends and family, and he just had that idea, that light bulb to say, hey, maybe I film this. And he filmed it, and because if he hadn't filmed it, that they would have put out some statement to say, oh, she just needed some water, she was fine.
Oh no, the woman was out cold. She was out cold.
She was. Yeah.
And you could see it. They dragged her foot was dragging. She lost a shoe. They throw her in the vambulance, is what I like to call it, the Scooby vambulance with the bed in the back. And
pneumonia. Remember, it was pneumonia was the first one, and that's how you knew it was something. And like we were talking about earlier, like how these candidates have to be perfect. Just say you had a fainting spell. Yeah. Just say it. Just say it, okay? Like,
the cover-up's worse than the crime. And then she comes out, a couple of hours later and tries to hug a little girl.
And it's like, if you have pneumonia, what exactly are you doing right there?
It was awful. Absolutely awful. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Trump Tower. And one of my favorite parts in the book, Jack, is your experience in front of Trump Tower once again on election night. You had spent most of the election day in Philadelphia, checking out there, and catch a train to New York City. Tell me about election night from your experience.
Sure. So and that was the funny thing. So I was originally supposed to go to a party I'd spent all of election day in Philadelphia, and just fighting voter fraud there and all that stuff. And towards about 5, 6 p.m. during that day, and I was looking at turnout, and I was saying, man, the turnout in the city of Philadelphia is zero. It's nothing. I was driving around, there were no lines, and I was getting all these calls from the center of the state and the western part of the state that said, Jack, these Republicans are fired up, and they're all coming out to vote for you.
So good. And you make a point in the book, though, too, to say that the time when there should be lines are at the very end of the day, when people are getting off of work.
Yeah.
And they're heading to the polls, and that's when the lines are usually the longest. And at that point in time, during the after work day, are you there? Hang on, we're lagging. There we are. At that point in the day, that there were no lines, and so that said to you, the urban vote in Philadelphia at least was not coming out for Hillary.
Exactly, and there's pictures that I put throughout the book. I said, at that point you can see it. That say, look, here's this poll at this time, and here's the link to my tweet where I put up the picture, and it's empty. Here's this gym that has 3 precincts of polls together in South Philly that should be packed. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of running the numbers in my head, and I said, well, if we don't have this in Philadelphia, there's this in Pennsylvania, then we're going to win Pennsylvania, and that means
wow.
So I literally I drive to the train station, and it's about an hour train ride from Philadelphia to New York. And I remember, mind you, I hadn't slept in like 2 or 3 days at this point.
Yeah.
And I hop on. I've literally like I pull up the Amtrak app on my phone. I punched in a ticket for a train that's leaving in like 5 minutes, and I'm just like running down to the train, hop onto it, and say. And I get up to New York. I get a phone call from the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania. Say, Jack, what are you doing? We need you here. We need you here. I said, I'm on the train to New York. We're going up to the party. We're gonna win this thing.
Did they believe it? Did they think?
They were like, but Jack,
No, you've got to be where the action is.
And I said, but Jack, you said you're gonna be here. I was like, I can't.
No,
I'm going up.
go.
But and then to go up to the actual party itself.
Oh no! You're missing one of the best parts. You got to tell this part. You're coming up from the train station, and you're walking up to street level.
I'm walking up to street level, and I get to that sidewalk, and I look up, and in front of me is just this gigantic visage, the face of Trump, like 40 stories high. And I'm looking, what the heck just happened?
On the side of the Empire State Building? Was it the Empire State Building?
So it was on the side of the Empire State Building, and I forget what state it was, but it was because they were putting up the faces of every time somebody won a state.
Nice.
And I just happened to walk up and see his face, just enormous, and it's all lit up in red, and I'm just like, oh, we're taking over this city, baby. This is our city now. So I have my MAGA hat on, my MAGA 3X shirt, the thing that we ran, and you guys can read more of this in Citizens for Trump, the fantastic new book by Jack Posobiec, available now at Amazon.com. But yeah, so I did that, made it up to the actual party, and then I left the party, and that's a funny thing that people are always kind of questioning. Jack, what do you mean you left the party? And I said, I left the party because I don't know. There were a lot of donors there. I had a lot of friends there, but I heard outside across the street, there was right outside was a flash mob right there in Manhattan, right in the city. And I just said, you know what? That's my people right there. The people with they brought American flags from home, and they had the handmade signs. And I just said, you know what? These are my people right here. And that's what I went out to. And I stayed with them for a long time, and there were reporters from all over the world. What do you guys do? How can you be so happy that this is happening? Surely he's going to lose or everything. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, there's no. And I'm like, you're joking. Like, we didn't. There's no way to lose. And people keep asking me. They would say like, oh, we just won this state. We won that state. He's going to win. And I'm like, yeah. I know.
Duh.
People were wondering why I wasn't so. Surprised. I was ecstatic, but I wasn't surprised. I said, I just couldn't see it happening any other way.
I agree with you 100%. I never, ever let myself entertain for a second the alternative. I just couldn't. I couldn't let my mind go to President Hillary Clinton. I'm just like, not, if it happens, I'll deal with it then. But until then, I cannot see anything happening other than Trump winning this thing. I just wouldn't even. Yeah, no,
I mean, when the histories are written of this thing, and I think that's what I've done here.
Yes.
Is to write, the first draft of that history, and to say, and people are like living in the moment and saying, oh, it's so hard to see this Trump win. They said it was a surprise victory, and I said, how could you not see this coming?
Yeah.
I mean, this was. I mean, look at the populist movement. You look at the way things are going, globalism versus nationalism. We talk about quite a bit in the book. And it all falls into line very, very, very easily. Yeah. So to say that you couldn't see it coming, I think, either you're someone who's just so incredibly biased for one side, you're unwilling to be open-minded about the state of affairs in America today and the world, or you're just someone who's not very good at reading, current events. And in that case, I would suggest that you open yourself up to some more sources, some alternate sources of news and media, and then shall we say CNN?
No, we shouldn't say CNN. Fake news. Okay, so around 2:00 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, somebody comes up, right?
Yeah, I'm standing on the street, and I actually had to go outside because there's so many people inside checking their cell phones and everything that there was like no signal. It was terrible. So I'm going outside, and I'm on the phone and with other people and trying to figure out what's going on, because there were already people, believe it or not, who were worried that in Pennsylvania we were going to have to go to a recount, and so they were telling me, the election day operations team was telling me, they said, Jack, we're gonna need you in Harrisburg. There's gonna be this. You can pack your bags. You know, get a hotel room in Harrisburg. And I'm like, guys, come on.
No.
Don't even say that word right now. Don't even go there. And you know, we get to that point, and I'm waiting for some clarity on it. And I'm like, I know we won. There's like 99% of precincts are in. Just call it. And the media just refused. They constantly refused. And then suddenly this kind of like, I don't know how to put it, but this like quiet kind of settles over everything. And suddenly all these, I mean, over 100 NYPD officers just come, you know, bristling by me on the street there. And I'm right outside on the corner, like, but inside the security perimeter. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they all stand up, you know, take formation along the way there.
And this is on the street out in front of, where was the party? It was
the Hilton.
The Hilton.
Midtown Hilton.
Okay.
Right. And so we're like 2 blocks away from Trump Tower. The whole place is ringed by like dump trucks and garbage trucks, and this big Secret Service perimeter. And then like a Secret Service agent is like going by and running around the with the radio in the ear and looking at me like, who's this guy? Kind of calling it in and everything. And I go to one of the NYPD officers and I'm like, what's going on? You know, what's all this? And he just kind of looked at me and he said, he's coming. And I said, who? He goes, the president.
I got chills when I read that in your book. I actually got chills. A New York police officer was the one that told you the president's coming.
Yeah, and I mean, Hillary hadn't conceded at that point. John Podesta hadn't even come out and made his cowardly speech. President Trump. It was about a good hour before Trump actually took the stage himself and went out. But you knew. Everybody knew. Everybody just knew. Right? And even looking at the transition period, even though he wasn't officially president yet, everyone knew he was already running the country. He started the job immediately. He started calling people up to the tower. It was a thing of beauty the way he did it. And so he just knew. He said he's the it just matter of, you know how New York cops are. He said the president. It's just very matter of fact, like all just the facts, man.
The president.
And, the president. And so he comes by and walks in, and I kicked myself for not taking a picture, but I knew if I did that's one of the things that you'd get thrown out. You just immediately be thrown out.
Yeah. Well, and it was dark out there too, wasn't it? Wasn't it pretty dark? I mean, it wouldn't have...
I mean, it's New York, so I mean, it's city never sleeps, so it was pretty lit up, but they had lights going around. But I just knew that it would been one of those things where you start calling attention to yourself, and people say, "Hey, what are you doing there?"
Yeah.
Who are you? I'm like, I'm with Citizens for Trump and all this. I'm like, I have my pass and everything, but you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And actually, it was General Flynn who had gotten me the pass for that party and everything. So I actually just sent a copy of the book to him, and I wrote a very nice note inside about just how much of an inspiration he was to me and to all of us in MAGA 3X, how his service to our country was amazing, how we know there's been a lot of fake news about him, but he will always remain very, very much an inspiration. People don't know that I served under General Flynn in the military. Nice. A lot of people don't know that. So my connection to him goes back years. So I got a copy of Junior, who I'm friends with, and then he said, "Hey, can I get a second copy?" And I'm like, "Who's it for?" And he goes, "Who do you think it's for?" That's awesome. So I'm doing the little letter, I'm like, General Flynn,
That's so great.
But we finished up the whole thing, and as I'm walking out, and we did the actual party, and Trump gives his speech and everything, and then finally we finished, and I'm walking out. And just kind of in that like daze of awe and tiredness and just celebration, and I happened to see the same officers just kind of standing there out on the street. They weren't like in formation anymore, but I realized it was the same guy. And I just said, I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Pretty cool. He recognized me too." And he just looked at me. He said, "Things are going to get better now." And I said, "Yeah, why's that?" And he goes, "We got Trump now."
Oh man!
It wasn't even a conversation. It wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a point of contention. So we got Trump.
Gosh, we got Trump now. And that's the way I felt too. Gosh, the guy, when you were talking about why people were kind of buying into the man, when he says we're going to get it fixed, I believe him. He's a guy that just gets things done. He's always been known as a guy who gets things done. You don't have a resume full of skyscrapers unless you're a guy that can get things done. Everybody can see it. He's got visible, tangible proof that he's a follow-through guy all the way to the end. And I just, there's something about the confidence of the alpha male that Donald Trump is, that just says we're going to get it done. And you just go, I believe you. I believe you will.
Yeah, and I remember, going, case in point, not to bring up current events, but you look at this travel ban that went through finally, after the judge in Hawaii, and then the Ninth Circuit, and they're all pushing back, and he finally said, no, I'm fighting this, and he sent his lawyers, all of his best lawyers. Jeff Sessions had all these great lawyers prepare these amazing briefs, and they fought it and argued it in front of the Supreme Court, and then boom, 9-0.
9-0, baby.
0. And that's just like, you can't even, because they said their argument was ironclad. Even Elena Kagan and Ruth Bader Ginsburg couldn't find a way to disagree with this. They said, look, this is the law.
It's the law.
We did it. You may not like it, and you may not be happy about it, but we agree with it. And then 3 of the justices, I think it was Gorsuch, Gorsuch, Thomas, and who's the other one?
Kennedy?
John Roberts. No, it wasn't Kennedy.
Okay, John Roberts.
No, it wasn't Roberts either. But they all agreed that they would have gone with,
Alito.
Alito, yes, thank you, Alito. That they would have gone with the original travel ban and said we're perfectly fine with this because you executed this in a legal fashion, and it is the job of the judiciary not to say whether they like something or not, but it's just to call balls and strikes and say what you did was legal or not.
Yeah. And
it is within the president's legal purview to do so. But the fact that President Trump fought that, got Gorsuch in there before the decision could be made, and people they're not paying, they don't remember the fight it took to get Gorsuch nominated and to realize that we needed him on deck for this to happen, because then that opened it up to say that, look, it's 9-0. How are you going to argue with that?
Yeah.
And of course the media has tried to say, oh, well, they only implemented part of it. They struck down part of it too, and they're going to argue that later. So, come on.
Yeah, this is a big hint of where that's going to go. All right, so you've got one book under your belt. You've got a book.
It's a crazy feeling. Yeah.
You've got a book under your belt, and more to come, I hear. Is this
more to come? More to come. Yes. Can't reveal too much yet because I don't want anybody stealing my ideas. But yeah, I've got another couple of book deals in the works for. And I'll tell this to you because you're a great friend, and if anybody has listened to this long of the podcast, then they deserve to hear this first. That I am working on 2 more books. One of them has to do with new media. One of them has to do as well with, let's just say, a very current event that's being covered up a lot by the mainstream media, and something that I've been working on quite a bit. Publicly in different videos. If people have been following me for a while, they'll get what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but we'll a certain thing which I like to search for on CNN that never actually seems to be found.
Yeah.
A certain story that's never on there about a certain organization of people in black masks in our country.
yes, absolutely.
But believe it or not, the third book, and this is totally just Jack Posobiec saying I need to do this. The third book is going to be fiction. It's not going to be a nonfiction book. It's going to be something that it's kind of like a detective novel, but set in like a sci-fi sort of way. But it's in this like dystopian future where like this SJW communistic government sort of like took over everything, and the whole, the whole country's just all messed up because of it. And that's the backdrop for this detective novel. Nice. And it's something that I actually worked on.
Can it be a thriller? Like
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, it's a thriller. So I mean, there's a lot of politics to it, but
Wait, you're lagging. Hang on.
I hope people like it, but that's always been a huge passion of mine. And I'm really excited to finally be able to actually get it out to an audience.
Awesome. Oh, can't wait. So, friend Jack Posobiec, author Jack Posobiec, citizen journalist Jack Posobiec, soon to be
theater critic. Don't forget theater critic. That's
theater
the new
critic.
one. Yes.
That's right. Well, so what would you say in closing? What would you say to anybody who's thinking about possibly ever doing something like this? What advice would you give?
Do it. Just absolutely just do it. Just don't stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. If you want to write, and I get it all the time. People come up to me and say, Jack, I want to write. I want to be a journalist. How do I do it? What should I do? Can you give me some tips? Just do it. Just literally just do it. Like there is news happening all around you every day.
Yeah.
There are things, stories that you could be covering, and maybe videos isn't your thing. Like I do a lot of video, maybe writing's your thing. Well, if you want to do writing, just write. Just write it out every day. Just write, a chapter a day of whatever's going on that you are passionate about, that you feel is relevant. Write it out. If it's an opinion piece, if you have an ideology, if you have, something that you want to get across, write it down. Just write it down, and then see if people like it. And if people like it and continue to like it and like it more and more, then boom, you've got a book, and you've got something that you can actually market to an audience. And the same thing with the journalism side. Just do it. We have our own platforms now. Amazon Create Space. Anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Anyone can post up. The process is actually really, really simple.
Yeah.
You follow their guidelines. You follow what it's like a PDF, and then a certain type of like JPEG you have to put in for the cover, and they give you templates, and you upload it. It's really not that hard. And some people my book is around 200 pages. There have been people who have done 100 pages, people who have done 80 pages, and you set the price, and it's up to you. This is the time. This is the greatest time in human history for content creators, because it's an entirely level playing field now. You don't need to worry about it. There's no gatekeepers anymore.
You're right, and that's so incredible. And I have to thank you as my friend. This weekend, I got a tip from another friend. Only 9 people knew about Wild Bill for America getting arrested at the Calgary airport. And my friend Jodan Gorman said, oh my gosh, you got to get this out. Can you help me retweet this and get this out? I sent it to you, and you said, write it up. And I'm like, that didn't occur to me. Write it up. Oh yeah, I see people using medium.com. I open an account real quick. I find a picture of Wild Bill, make my title, write what I know, reference an article, find out a little bit more about the event he was supposed to speak at another one, give them credit, about 4 paragraphs, upload it, you retweeted it. The thing went just crazy over the weekend. Incredible story. Nobody else knew about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Nobody else knew. It was at that point in time, it was something private that he had shared in text messages with 9 people. That was it. That was the tip.
And that's what's so amazing, because now, thanks to, it's like Andrew Breitbart said, anyone who's got one of those phones is a journalist now. Anybody can go on Medium. Anybody can have their own website and write whatever you want, say whatever you want, and you get it out there. You broke news. You broke news because you were tied to somebody. It is kind of fun, isn't it? Right?
It's really fun.
You've got the story that nobody else has, and that's what the media does. And to tell you the truth, the mainstream media, though, they're so cutthroat about these things. Everybody's trying to jump over everybody else to get the source or get that source, and the tactics that these people will go to get those stories, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
These people are filthy. These people, and I mean, on a spiritual, moral level, they have no. They're heartless. They are cruel. I mean, I don't talk about it very much because if I were to do so, then it might give up, some of my own sources. But when I hear things that the other side is trying to do to get information out, it's always threats. It's always threats of indemnity, threats of exposure, threats of leaking information, threats of, oh, we're going to say this about your family, we're going to say this about you, we're going to bring up this thing from years ago and ruin your business, all kind of things like that. Where when I go to a source, and I usually say, I will protect your anonymity, I will make sure that everything you say to me, and I use a system of encrypted emails, encrypted text messages, encrypted phone calls if I need to, dead drop. I literally have had dead drops here in DC.
Now, what's a dead drop?
When you set up a location for as like a seed, like a tree stump or a mailbox, something, or something where somebody leaves something in there at a certain time, you come by like an hour later and pick it up and just keep moving, and nobody is able to like connect the fact that you two were there, right? And then you can get a certain document or a certain letter or whatever it is, because they never actually see you in person. Or I'll have a meeting where, you know, I've got to go into a building, and there's so many different ways. Like, I've got to go into a building at a certain time to get to this one room, and they have a code that opens the door, and then I go in, and the person I'm supposed to meet with is in there, but then we have to leave at different times and stagger it. And people don't realize the levels that we have to go through for this thing to actually work. I was at a meeting this weekend out in one of the suburbs of DC in Northern Virginia side, and I literally had to take 2 cars to get there because nobody would tell me where it was. I had to drive to one spot, leave my car, then get into somebody else's car, and then they drove me to the place, and then I was able to walk in. So they never even told me beforehand because they didn't want to get out.
Wow.
It's OPSEC and compartmentalization, and that is how you protect sources. The mainstream media doesn't care about that. The mainstream media just makes up sources and doesn't actually want to do the legwork that it takes to break these kind of stories.
Right. And wouldn't you say on the mainstream media side that there's a competitiveness with each other to be the first to break a story, and they're competing for being the first, they're competing for ads, they're competing for viewers, they're competing against one another, and it's kind of a dog-eat-dog thing. Would you say that on the social media side, and this is maybe wishful thinking on my part, but maybe not, that there's more of a collaborative effort?
I would agree.
For example, I mean...
Among most.
Okay.
You know, you can kind of tell... I'll put it this way. On our side, the difference is that we have a message. We have a general platform, right? And you can tell when people get involved in this, who is for the message and who's in it for themselves.
Yeah.
And you can tell very much because those are the types of people that you see them taking things personally and getting involved in all these petty dramas and commenting on other people and this and that and getting into all of it. And I'm just always sitting there like, guys, we don't have time for any of this.
We don't have time for that.
We don't have time for drama.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah. We have no time for petty bickering. Yeah. We need to band together and stand united. You know, there are people on the other side. We are going up against billionaires right now, and we're using the power of the truth. We're using the power of social media, marketing, organization. Great, but we are going up against billionaires. Like, I can write a book, sure, but they can put out a New York Times article of fakeness and then share it with the New York Times has like 7 million bots on Twitter. They won't accuse us of using bots, but they've got 7 million when you run the Twitter audit on them. And then you turn around and they can get that trending in front of more eyeballs than my book is ever going to see. So it's like, what am I supposed to do?
Write another book?
I'm just going to have to. I'm just going to have to. That's a good way to end it. Yeah. Stay tuned for things to come.
Write another book. Well, I have to say, you're one of the people on the collaborative side I would consider a true friend. Somebody who didn't take a story, said, you write it, you do it. Somebody who's been an encouragement for me. And I enjoy encouraging too. So it's just one of those things where it was all about, prior to the election, about getting Trump over that finish line. It felt like such a hard-fought victory that you wanted to share with friends. And now that he's in the White House and he's governing, it's defending him, helping him get that agenda. And it's just I'm having the time of my life. Absolutely the time of my life. and it's so fun to share it with friends like you. You shared your time of your life in 2016 in your book, Citizens for Trump. You guys get it. Jack Posobiec.
Oh,
Amazon,
yeah.
Amazon, you guys get the book. It's an awesome read. And thank you again for your time. Thank you for your friendship. And thanks for talking on Cari Calls tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cari. I really appreciate it. As always. Can't wait till next.
As always, we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Okay, you too.